saying that enemies to lovers is one of the most popular romance and romantasy tropes that there is. I don't feel like it's actually executed very well that often. So today I am going to take you through some book recommendations where I think the enemies to lovers trope slaps. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Bronte, and like I said, we are going to talk about enemies to lovers in books today. I'm going to go through some book recommendations across the romance and romantasy genres and give you all the recommendations that hopefully you will love as much as I did. If you are new here, I would appreciate a subscribe or a like on the video, and I'd also love to know from you guys what your favourite romantasy book with enemies to lovers is, because I am looking for some more right now. But let's get into the video. The first book I want to talk to you about is something that I personally feel is really underrated in the romantasy space, and this is the Age of Vampires series. This is by Peckham and Susanne Valenti, and it's a completed series of 6 books, and they are all available on Kindle Unlimited as well. So essentially this is about twins who live in a post-apocalyptic sort of dystopian world where vampires treat humans like cattle, and the twins are very hesitant about this upcoming vampire sort of annual testing that happens where they take humans into the royalty's castle, and basically those humans are never heard from again. So to get around that and make sure it doesn't happen to them, they decide to try and escape the society. But of course that does not go well, and one of them does get captured by the vampires. With the twins being split up, the story is dual POV, and it follows both of them separately as they try to reunite. The twin that's in the castle is basically being controlled by one of the vampire princes, but he also has this seductive way about him, and she cannot work out if she can trust him or not. The twin that's on the outside, desperately trying to get to her twin and free her from these vampires, meets this ancient man on the way who seems to just be from a different world altogether and keeps talking about this ancient war with the vampires. So as you can imagine, there is a lot going on in this book, and I would actually compare it to the originals. If you ever watched that, which was the Vampire Diaries spin-off, that was such a good show, and this really reminds me of it. Definitely more so in book 2, but overall it definitely has a Vampire Diaries style feel to it. The enemies to lovers specifically is so good. You can probably imagine which couple it is that is going to be enemies to lovers in this story and why they are enemies to lovers. But let me just tell you, the tension is absolutely unreal, and nobody does enemies to lovers like the Twisted Sisters, because if you didn't know, these are also the authors of Zodiac Academy and a lot of dark romances, which usually fall into the genre of bully romance. Now this one is not bully romance, it's just plain enemies to lovers, but it definitely has the same level of hatred towards each other and the why can't I leave you alone feel. What I also love about these books is that the 2 main characters are not very annoying. I often find female main characters in romantasy books are written just really poorly, in the sense that they are super annoying, they make really bad decisions, and yeah, these guys just don't do that. They're very sassy, they're very stubborn, but they're smart too. So definitely recommend this series. Like I said, it's completed as well, so you can literally sink your teeth into it. It's so underrated. The next book I want to talk about is also really underrated. I literally just read this, finished it last night, so it's super new and super fresh in my mind, but I absolutely flew through it, could not put it down because it was so fast paced, and that was Us Dark Few. You might have heard of this, you might not, but essentially it is another sort of dystopian romance. This one is pure dystopian romance. It doesn't have any paranormal creatures or fantasy elements at all, but I think you will still love it even if sci-fi or dystopian is not really your bag. It really reminded me of like an older version of Shatter Me or Divergent. The book follows Callie, who is wrongly imprisoned for stealing something that she did not actually steal, and when she is put in this prison, she finds that it is incredibly brutal. It's underground, you know, they're treated like absolute shit, and the guards are bullies. She quickly makes a group of friends to try and survive, but she also finds herself drawn to the captain of the guards, Takeshi Steele. He is very standoffish and very aggressive, but nonetheless she can't help feeling like she can trust him, so she asks him to train her to fight so that she can try and survive in this awful prison. Meanwhile, the society that they live in is Earth in hundreds of years, and it has been wiped out by radiation poisoning, meaning that for hundreds of years the whole society society has been underground. When we join the story at Kalani's point, there is an elite group of society living above ground in a domed society that has been engineered by scientists. And it very much has the same kinds of themes that are present in a lot of dystopian books like classism, power imbalances, environmentalism. But the main part of the plot is Kalani trying to survive this prison and potentially even get out. This is book 1 in a series. I believe 1 and 2 are out. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series or if that's complete, but I really enjoyed this. Like I said, it's short and it's fast paced, but the enemies to lovers, it's so good because it also has obviously this forced proximity and forbidden romance, given that Takeshi is captain of the guards and she's a prisoner that he's supposed to be trying to keep in line. Because he's teaching her to fight, you get the age-old trope of like fight scenes and training scenes where he is teaching her what to do and their bodies are in close proximity to each other, and it's just so tense and delicious. And not to give too much away about the plot, but it's almost kind of enemies to lovers to enemies again. So do with that what you will. Let's mix it up and talk about Nightshade, which is a recently traditionally published dark academia romantic suspense. This is perfect if you are one of the moody girlies who loves autumn and Scotland and like eerie vibes. You're going to get all of that in this book. It is book 1 in a duology and book 2 doesn't come out until next year, but I would highly recommend buying and reading this anyway to support the author because she is indie and it is one of her traditionally published debuts. But this follows Alex and Ophelia. Ophelia decides to enlist in this sort of prestigious college to try and find out more about this super rich family that she thinks has something to do with her parents' death. Of course, Alex is a part of this family, and so when she is immediately put in a group project with him, she is furious. She wants nothing to do with him. She's here to get to the truth, not to socialise with him, even though he's very good looking and very charming. Like I said, it does have romantic suspense, so there's also a thriller plot, which makes this super exciting and addictive. But the enemies to lovers is so good because it's kind of one-sided. Now you maybe are not kind of looking for that in an enemies to lovers, because traditionally enemies to lovers is like they both hate each other so much they can't bear to be around each other. But I actually think one of the best things about this is the fact that it is a little bit more one-sided. Alex really has no idea what he's done, why she hates him so much, but she really has her reservations about this guy, you know. And so you get this incredible slow burn and also this yearning from Alex. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 for enemies to lovers and yearning. But yeah, I would highly recommend this. It's the perfect autumnal romance with addictive, twisty plot. You might have heard about Cruel Prince when people talk about enemies to lovers books. I love the Cruel Prince series, but I personally don't include it in enemies to lovers recommendations because it is more of a YA fantasy and the romance subplot is very, very, very small. And if you're looking for more of a traditional romantasy, you might be disappointed because of that. However, I recently read a romantasy book that felt like an adult Cruel Prince, but the romance was much more prevalent, and that was Amid Clouds and Bones. This was so freaking good. It was a 4.5 star for me. I read it in one night. I absolutely could not put it down, and it is a dark romantasy standalone. So if you are looking for something that is super addictive, has all the fun tropes that you love, but isn't too much of an investment, then this is the perfect option. I think it's also on Kindle Unlimited. It's kind of got your traditional plot of Fae politics, different courts, a war between Fae, and also a marriage of convenience. But the way the author writes the characters is what makes this so fun. They hate each other so much that they try to kill each other and poison each other, but both of them give as good as they get, and you just end up with this political mindfuck of a relationship between them. All the while, you know, this war is going on in the background that they're both trying to solve. It's just so fun. There's no other word for it than fun. It's such a good time. The love interest really does give bratty Carden energy. Like, that was my immediate thought upon reading it. He's giving me Carden. She's less like Jude, but she's still sassy and she still stands up for herself. So it's not the kind of enemies to lovers where you're kind of resentful of the fact that she's given in to him. It's very much an even playing field, and yeah, so political, so fun. Quicksilver by Callie, Hart. This one is a bit more of a popular one, but just in case you haven't read it, I read this last year and I gave it a 4.25 star rating. It definitely has some flaws, but for the most part this is a really fun romantasy book, I would say, for anyone who is a big fan of all of the popular books in romantasy and all of the popular tropes. I think the character's name in this is Ceres, if I remember correctly, or something very similar to that. But she lives in a poverty-stricken world where she is forced to sort of steal to survive. She has a brother that she's, you know, looking after, and their world is very desolate and they just don't have a lot of resources. One day when she is trying to steal something, she gets caught by the royal guard. In the midst of getting her punishment, something super weird happens. The floor basically turns into like a molten quicksilver, and she falls through it into a fey land with this man that she's never seen before. Enter Kingfisher, said mysterious man. Now, is Kingfisher the worst name I've ever heard for a romantasy love interest? Yes. However, I have a feeling his name is part of the plot and his real name will get revealed later, I think. There's so much arguing between these two, so much bickering, so much back and forth, but there's also so much tension and so much spice, but it's also kind of like a back and forth that just makes it so fun. It does have a slower bit in the middle, but it's well worth pushing through, and I say that as someone who hates a slow plot, because the last 150 pages are like 5-star worthy. So good, a twist I didn't really see coming, and just more to the plot than you originally think. The romance is one of the best parts of the books, but you also have amazing side characters who also just add so much to the story and so much humour. So all around, this is a great romantasy that has an enemies to lovers subplot. I think most people that are already well versed in the genre will love this book. Now I'm going to talk about a super popular and a super controversial series, and that is Zodiac Academy. I personally love these books. I will talk about some of the negatives around them and who will enjoy them and who won't enjoy them later. But first, I just want to say that if you are looking for enemies to lovers where they hate each other, they despise each other, and they have valid reason to do so, you will not find a more high stakes enemies to lovers than these books. In fact, they are actually marketed as 18+ bully romance. So the first thing to note is that if you have ever been bullied or bullying is a trigger for you, you may struggle with these books. I will say that the bullying, of course, dies down after book 2, because how would they ever become lovers? And it's not always what you think it is. There is more to the story that redeems certain characters without giving anything away too much. But I just want to put that out there because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that is perfectly okay. To give you a bit of a backstory on these follow twins, and it's the same authors of Age of Vampires, so apparently they just really like twins. But it follows twins who are in and out of the foster care system their whole life. You know, they haven't had a nice life and they're basically doing whatever they can to survive. One day, this mysterious man, there's a lot of mysterious men in these books, a mysterious man barges his way into their little tiny apartment, and he's like, "You two, you're coming with me." And they're like, "Hold on a second, no we're not." And he's like, "Yes you are," because he's super grumpy in the best way. And he takes them into this fey realm, and turns out they are long lost royalty who have been misplaced in the human world. They must enroll in Zodiac Academy, which is a magical school for fey. Now, fey here is a general term for magical beings, more like how fey is in mythology. So you get vampires, you get sirens, you get lion shifters, you get all sorts of things, and within that there is an elemental magic system with the 4 elements. So if you like a really cool magic system and a world that feels like whimsical and magical because it has all of these different species, then you will love it just for that, if nothing else. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't like about this, aside from the fact it's bully romance, is the writing style. I will fully admit the writing style is difficult. I read the first 2 books. I had never read anything like it. I was like, this is terrible, but I also couldn't put it down, and I read them so fast. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you other than to say it's like the Jersey Shore reality TV show, of books. Now, by the time it got to book 3, I was hooked and I was actually enjoying the story now, and I could forgive the writing because the characters were some of the best I've ever read and the romance was some of the best that I have ever read. So with that in mind, I would say that if technical craft of writing is really, really important to you, do not read these. If you do not like a bully romance and you do not like books that have unlikable characters, do not read these. And I would also say that if you're a slow reader, these might not be for you because there is 12 of them. That is completed now, but there is 12 and there is a lot of filler in them. So I feel like these are only worth it if you're a fast reader, because other people then get frustrated with how long they're taking to slog through. I personally love these. The Enemies to Lovers is unlike anything I've ever read before. The humour is top tier. I feel like the characters are so well developed that they feel like best friends. And this is honestly in my top 5 series of all time, despite being someone who is a super harsh rater. There's just something so cozy, comforting and nostalgic about these books. I don't actually have a physical copy of book 1, but this is the Blood Gift duology and this is book 2, the Blood Gift. Book 1 is the Blood Trials. Again, a super underrated series, which makes me so upset. And I know that it's underrated because the publishers did not put much effort into marketing this series, so much so that they stopped the author doing a 3rd book like there was originally supposed to be. So I would love to see more people talk about this book, more people read this book, more people recommend it, because it's just so good but so underrated. Similarly to some of the ones I mentioned earlier, this is more of a dystopian fantasy, sci-fi romance. There's a bit of a mixture of everything. You do definitely have some fantasy elements, though they don't come in until later, but it definitely has like a dystopian sci-fi feel that kind of, again, feels a bit like if you mixed Red Rising with Divergent. So the plot starts with Ikenna, who has recently lost her granddad, starting a fight in a bar. She's angry, she's grieving, and she hates these elite soldiers that work at this academy, so she starts a fight with them. Only thing is, despite them being elite soldiers, she manages to beat them. So when she gets offered a place at this academy, she decides to take it because she realises it could also help her find out what really happened to her grandfather, because she suspects he did not die of natural causes. When she's there, she has to compete in these trials and challenges to make it through the training system. So if you like things with deadly trials and challenges, like, I don't know, Hunger Games, Powerless, Fourth Wing, that kind of a thing, this is one for you. All the meanwhile, there is a character named Reed, who is basically like a leader in this elite academy, and she is not meant to fraternise with him, but they do. And it's an Enemies to Lovers for sure, because this academy stands for everything that she doesn't like about her society, and yet she finds herself drawn to multiple people in it, to be honest. Not multiple romantic relationships, but she finds herself making friendships and alliances that she never thought she would. And so it starts to unravel this kind of corruption about the society and how other people are impacted, not just her family. And yeah, it's a really great little duology filled with complex characters, romance, sci-fi, fantasy, mysteries and twists, like all different things, but really action-packed and really fast-paced. And again, the Enemies to Lovers part of it is so good. We get those training scenes again, like For and Triss in Divergent. If you like that kind of a thing, it's a must read. And the last one for today, Direbound. Now this is kind of Enemies to Lovers, but kind of not as well, and that's why I've left it until last. I personally feel like this kind of satisfies that part in you that really loves Enemies to Lovers without fully being an Enemies to Lovers, if that makes any sense. Once again, this is a romantasy. It's book 1 in a series. I don't know if it's going to be 2, 3, however many books, but it is so worth reading. If you like Fourth Wing, this has to be your next read. It's a very similar vibe. The first part of the book starts with our female main character trying to survive and also take care of her younger sister and her mother, because her mother has some sort of mental illness type condition where she's having delusions. Except at the same time, there is somebody stealing children in the dead of night, and one night somebody does take her sister. She is beside herself with worry and she needs to get her sister back. So she enlists in the army that guards the royal family. Only thing is, it turns out to be a bonded year, which is where they use those army trainees to see if any of them will bond with the dire wolves that live at the top of this mountain and are magical, who every so often bond with guardians to become like the elite guardians of the army. Merys ends up bonding with a wolf, but this wolf is not like the other wolves and she wants absolutely nothing to do with Meryn, even though she has chosen her to bond with. It's all very confusing. And so the plot carries on from there as she goes to this, training process, and there's again deadly trials and challenges. So, if you like the deadly trials and challenges, this is another one to add to the list. All the while, the teacher, Stark, is making her life a living hell. He hates her, he thinks she's weak, he has no idea why she's there, and he keeps putting pressure on her and also trying to train her to get her stronger. There's a lot of tension between them, even though they absolutely hate each other, and despite the fact that Meryn already has a boyfriend. I don't want to say too much because there is a lot of twists in this one. I found them quite predictable, to be honest, but I still had a great time. But this is, again, if you like, any of those books that I've just mentioned, or Fourth Wing, or anything with trials and challenges, it's a must read. It's so fast paced. I have a reading vlog, so I'll link that above if you want to watch it, but 10 out of 10 recommend. But that is everything for today. Just a quick one with some enemies to lovers recommendations that you might not have read yet. If you have read any of these, let me know what you think in the comments, or if you have any romantasy recommendations that you think I should read, please also let me know in the comments. But otherwise, make sure to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next week because I make videos every single Monday. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Love you. Bye.